Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum class. Welcome to English grade 11. I'm your instructor Zia Hamid. I hope that you're doing well and you're following all the lectures that we have been doing and the upcoming lectures as well. So welcome to English grade 11. Today we have our lecture 8 of unit 3 and we have to cover this learning outcome which talks about your reading comprehension, because we are going to talk about the structure of the text that you're reading. Either you are reading a poem, any poetry, or anything in prose. It can be fiction or non-fiction, both. But specifically, we are going to focus on fiction because in the book you can see there's a story called A White Heron. It is very much important that you read such stories and try to understand about the choices that an author makes in order to structure different parts of the text. So first, let's read our learning outcome. We are supposed to analyze how an author's choices concerning how to structure specific parts of a text. For example, the choice of where to begin or end a story, the choice to provide a comedic or tragic resolution, which means the solution, the ending of the story, or the denouncement, contribute to its overall structure and meaning as well as its aesthetic impact. Aesthetic means which you find pleasing. Some things are artistic, they have different aesthetic importance. So we will see that how an author, when it comes to fiction, how does the author write the story? Why the ending or the start or the middle is the way it is. So we need to analyze it. So we will be talking about some analytical questions that talk about the structure. Structure means the organization, how the whole story is organized in a very specific sequence and in a very good organization. All right, now that we have understood the learning outcome, we are going to talk about the structure of a text of a fiction, and we are going to see it according to the author's choice of doing it. And now let's see the vertical linkage over here. Students, this links your SLO with the previous grade. So in grade 10, we covered the same SLO. Now, before we dive into the lecture, let's talk about a very basic question. I want you to think about it. You may have read so many different stories. Now, what do you think? What is structure of a story? Now, if you are a good reader who likes to read, then you can see that there are different stories. They are organized and written in a specific way. This is the whole body, the structure, the skeleton of the story, the text. This is what we call a structure. So it is very important that we do a very good analytical analysis of the structure of a story. Now, let's try to understand what a structure is. When we are talking about a text, anything that is written, that you read as a reader, the structure of a text refers to how a written work is organized and arranged. Obviously, if we don't arrange it, then the meaning will be lost and the plot will be disoriented, disorganized, the whole story will lose its meaning. So the authors are very careful about how they are going to see that, how they are going to convey the story to you. It involves the way different parts of the text are put together to create a coherent and effective piece of writing. A very good piece of writing has coherence, unity, and a very good form. The structure helps guide the reader through the text, making it easier to understand the message or story the author is trying to convey. So why is structure important? So that you can understand the story very well in a very good organization, in a very good structure, so that one by one you can understand it completely without losing anything. And everything is in a system, it is systematic. So we are going to see that how it works and how the author tries to do it. Now, when we are talking about structure of a story, obviously we are going to talk about these various different elements that make up a story. So students, I hope that you can see it on the screen. We have a beginning, the exposition of the story, where the story starts. The way the story starts. Now, you know, a story can start from the past, a story can start in the middle as well, and a story can have different expositions, different beginnings. For example, one way of structuring the beginning of a story is in medias res. It means the story is start from the middle. Then the writer can move back, tell you what happened before in the past, or he will tell you that what is going to happen next. So the story can be start from the middle. This depends upon the author's choice. If the author thinks that the middle part of the story should be told first, that is totally dependent upon the author. And hopefully you will understand everything, because this is how the author tries to convey the message to you. Now, the development in the middle of the story, we have the development of the plot. The plot is developed, characters are introduced, and themes. All these different elements are developed and introduced as well, respectfully. Now, we have an end of the story, which we call the resolution of the story. Now, let's talk about it. Here, some stories have happy endings. Some stories have tragic ending with suffering, loss, and sorrow. So, how the ending is going to be leaves a very good impact on you as a reader. Now, this also depends upon the author, that how the author wants to convey the message and how does he want to end the story, either with a very with comic relief, with a comedy ending, or with a tragic ending. We have so many examples in literature, for example in Shakespeare, and with different plays and different short stories or novellas, where we can see that the author started from a tragic story and ended it on a good note or with a comic relief, or the story is normal but it ends very tragically. Somebody dies, some great loss happen, and that's what we call a tragic ending. So the story can have a good happy ending or a tragic ending. Now, a story, when we are structuring it, when the author is trying to make it, it has different perspectives or point of views. And we know that there are different point of views or POVs: first person narrative, second person, third person limited, and third person omniscient. So these four, or you can also add third person objective. So these are all the different kinds of narratives and perspectives that the author chooses. Before writing the story, the author always selects that what is going to be the narration style. Is it going to be in the first person, where you can see the word I mostly, or in the second person, or in the third limited, or third person omniscient or objective. So these are all the different narrative styles that we are going to see. This is also part of the structure of the story, and this also tells us about the intention of the author as well. Let's talk about pacing. Yes, pacing means to show the pace, the speed at which the story is taking place. Either the events are happening quickly or they're happening in a very slow way. Is the narration slow or fast? This is what we decide with the pacing element. So the speed at which the story unfolds, the speed at which you are introduced with the story and get involved in the story completely depends upon the pacing. So the pacing, the speed of the narration of the whole text is also a part of the structure, and this is also needed to be analyzed as a reader and as a critical thinker or just a critique of the text. Now, let's talk about the writer's choice or the author's choice to begin and end a story. The way a writer chooses to begin and end a story plays a crucial role in shaping the reader's experiences and the overall impact of the story. Now, I talked about it. The beginning the start of the story, the initial point can be started from the middle, in the future, or in the past, and there are so many ways to present and open up the story with a very good hook. And there's also some ways of ending the story, either in a positive note or negative. It can be an optimistic point of view left at the end, and a pessimistic view. The story can end on a good note. It can end on a very negative and tragic ending with so many suffering and pain. These choices influence how the reader understands the plot, connects with the characters, and interprets the theme. So, characters, plot, and theme, all these are connected, and if the writer's choice is the way it is, if the writer is doing something in his or her particular style, this will tell you that how the story changes. The same story, if it is written in different kind of structure with different kind of ending, a different start, it will definitely leave a very good impact on the story itself, and this will influence our understanding as a reader also. Now, let's talk about the beginning. In the beginning of the story, mostly the author introduced the setting and characters, establish the tone and mood of the story. What is the tone and what is the mood? Present the main conflict or hint of it. Problem or conflict is also introduced at the very start. So these are all of the things that you can find in the beginning of a story. Now, let's take for example this thing. In media, if the writer is starting the story in the middle of the action, for example, we have a very epic poem, the Odyssey, by a ancient Greek author, a writer, Homer. So the story starts with Odysseus already on his journey home. It means that the story is in medias res rather than beginning with his departure from Troy. So the writer did not start it from the departure, which is technically the starting, but he started with Odysseus, the character, the protagonist, already on the journey home. So what happened before it? We don't know, because we are going to find out as we are reading it. So this is a story starting from the middle. Now, what is the impact of this kind of structure? If we are analyzing the structure of Homer's Odyssey, we can say that this grabs the reader's attention immediately by throwing them into the middle of the action, making them curious about what led to this point. This is totally the author's choice, students. Starting a story in medias res, it will completely hook you as a reader and it will elevate your interest because you are put in the action in the middle of it. So you want to think about it, that why Odysseus is on the ship, why is he going back, where is he coming from? So this will elevate your interest. That's why authors choose this kind of structure to start their story. Now, let's talk about comedic resolution. A solution, an ending of the story with comic relief, with something funny, interesting, or hilarious, something that is very much comforting. This usually involves a happy or satisfying ending where conflicts, the problems, which is a very important part of the story, an element, they are resolved positively. And we can say that it has a comedic resolution. Characters might achieve their goals. This is very satisfying. Relationships are mended, they are corrected, and the tone is light or hopeful. So if you see all these different types of characteristics in the ending of the story, you can say that this is a resolution with comedy, with comic relief on a positive note. Now, what about tragic resolution? Tragic comes from the word tragedy, which means suffering, pain, loss, something that is very tragic, it is disheartening. This involves a sad or unfortunate ending where conflicts, the problems, lead to negative outcomes. Somebody will die, the problems are not solved, and the story is ended. We can say that it is a tragic resolution. Characters may suffer losses, face consequences, or fail to achieve their goals, resulting in a somber means sad or reflective tone. So this also tells so much more about the whole structure of the text. Now, let's look at an example of a comedic resolution. It often leaves the reader with a sense of joy, relief, or optimism, reinforcing a light-hearted tone. Now, there's a play of Shakespeare. It ends with a very positive and good note. Like, if I'm not wrong, then it's Comedy of Errors, or there's some other play which ends on a very positive and light-hearted note. For example, the novel To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, it also ends on a very positive note when the main character, Boo Radley, is having a very good ending on a very positive note. Now, and one thing is left. If we talk about tragic ending, we can see so many different stories and plays that ends tragically, like the story of Hamlet or Macbeth, we can say, or there are so many different novellas that end on a tragic note. Now, students, you can watch this simulation link for extensive knowledge and better understanding. You can access the link, watch it on YouTube, and take your notes, learn more about the topic. Now, for the homework, what you're supposed to do is put your knowledge into practice. Yes, you have to select a short story. Take any short story from your book or any textbook. Take a novel or a play that you have read recently, or you can read it at that time. Identify the following elements. How does the story start? Does it start with in the starting, in the middle, or in medias res, or starting with simple exposition? You are going to see, number 2, what are the main conflicts or challenges faced by the characters? How is the story resolved? What is the resolution? Is it a happy ending or tragic ending? 4 is, who is telling the story? What is the narrative perspective? Is it a first person, third person, omniscient, or limited? And number 5 is, how quickly or slowly does the story unfold? This is talking about the pace of the story. And this also contributes in the structure of the story. Next, you have discussed how these structural elements contribute to the overall meaning and aesthetic impact of the text. How do you feel about the story personally, on a personal level, and what changes it in you? Did you like the whole impact? Is it aesthetic? Does it make you think? Are you reflecting on it? Are you trying to change yourself about it? Are you learning something from it or not morally? And so many more things. So take a story, put this lecture which you are watching right now. We are about to end it with a very good note and a very good interesting homework that you're supposed to read a story, find about all these elements and all the structure of the story, the starting, the ending, how things are, and the pacing, the narrative. All of these things will be analyzed by you, and we can say that we have successfully achieved our learning outcome of today. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that you are clear about everything. So if you have any kind of question from Zoom class, you can type it in the chat box. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can leave your valuable, worthy comments, your suggestions in the comments down below. It will be read, it will be replied as well. They will be replied with valuable, good feedback. Thank you so much, students. I hope that we have successfully covered the learning outcome by talking about the author's choice of structuring a story and how it impacts the text, the story, and the readers as well. Thank you so much, students. I'll see you in the next video lesson with another learning outcome. Till then, you're supposed to solve all these resources. A worksheet, a skill sheet is attached. You can find a question bank as well in the resources. You can solve them and elevate your learning. Take care of yourselves. Allah Hafiz.